of life. We thank you for our sponsors, Edify Christian School Owners Association, our teachers. We thank you for our parents who have provided us with the gadgets so that we can access these lessons. And God, before we start this lesson, please send your Holy Spirit down on us so that we may cram, so that we may get whatever the teacher is going to teach us. In Jesus' name we have prayed.
Amen. I was going to cancel your prayer, but let me continue. You said God should enable you cram. The God I serve should not enable you cram, but understand what we are going to learn. Cram work is like having a role model you imitate. At your level, we don't imitate, but what is the right thing we do?
We understand.
We emulate, and then here we understand. So let us not cram, but instead we understand. Remind me of what we looked at last week very fast.
We looked at how to introduce a theme and also how to write paragraphs in a theme, how to extract the theme in a novel or a poem, and how to write an essay in it in case the question comes, question approach on how to write a theme.
Yeah, you told me you had tried.
No, I didn't say I tried. Last time I did the first assignment, not the second one.
Of character, but I told people to try out of themes as well. Who did for the themes?
Yes.
But if someone practiced in their book that they in a book that you did, you can put up your hand. Mr. Bimba, could you make me the host, please? So that from there we can transition. I want to be able to have at least someone share their screen and show us how they approached it. It is important for us to do that. Who tried who tried at least expounding, introducing a theme and writing at least 2 to 3 paragraphs of that theme so that we begin from there. Yes, class. Noreen, Promise, Christine, Claire, Asimwe, you're all here quiet. Auma, hey, it's time to share. Who tried or who got a problem? Maybe from there. Any of those 2 questions. And then as we try these things out, can we read our novels? Let's read our novels and plays. We have very scanty knowledge of the books. So it means most of us are not really reading. So my other consideration for you to really put into action is the reading of these novels. Novels are unlike anything, you must read. Without the plot, you cannot know the themes, you cannot. So everything rotates around knowing what is in the poem or what is in the novel. So for those who tried out, it seems no one tried. Despite me displaying for you mine and giving you examples, it seems people did not try. Is there anyone who found a challenge doing what they were supposed to do? Is there a person who found a challenge when they were expanding their themes? Yes, class. Okay, it seems you all okay. I see here Lois's hand is up. Lois. Yes, Lois.
Sir, I wanted to ask the question how we approach theme.
How we do it?
Yes.
How do we?
how we tried out how to write the themes
Did you?
to explain them.
Did you?
I want to explain the theme of love in the grief child. Yes?
Okay. Can you be able to share your screen so that maybe you display what you have?
Okay. Let me try out.
Now, if you can, I can make sure that you display so that we analyze yours
It
and
can't
correct
show.
you. I beg your pardon?
Teacher, can I explain just?
Okay, go ahead. Which theme did you pick? Which theme did you pick under grief child?
Your network is starting. I'm not hearing you.
I'm saying which theme did you pick under grief child?
Hello, sir.
I can get you. Lois,
I'm not getting you well. Please.
I'm saying which theme did you pick?
So what is that?
Okay, Lois, let's do that at the end of the lesson. Okay, so today we are going to look at poetry. We're going to do, still we're under the theme of death and ancestors. And we are going to look at the poem Death, Be Not Proud by John Donne. Okay.
Yes?
Today we are going to do, I hope you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen, Liam?
Teacher. Yes, teacher, we can see.
Okay, so I said today we are going to look at the poem Death, Be Not Proud under the theme of death and ancestors. And I hope you have read this poem already, or for those who are reading it for the first time, we shall do this poem and analyze like we always do. After this, we shall go to the next theme. So I'm going to ask someone to read for us. Someone to read for us. Yes, promise.
The title is Death, Be Not Proud. Death, be not proud. That some have called thee mighty and dreadful, and thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkst thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow. And soonest our best men will with thee go, rest of their bones and souls deliver. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and does with poison, war, and sickness dwell, and quickly chance, and make us sleep as well. One short sleep must make it well, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. John Donne, England.
Okay, for those who have read this poem and those who had seen it before,
Shall be death.
how many had seen this poem before?
Teacher, me.
Okay, so you're going to be a resource in this paper as we go through this poem, but I'm also interested in a second reading. Then we analyze line for line. Agatha, I don't know why your microphone is on. Do you have something you want to tell us? Please mute your microphone. Let's take a second reading from Liam. Let us do a second reading. We shall at least take more than one reading. This is more than two readings. This poem is unlike the others, not so obvious, but we want to analyze it. It is short, yes, but slightly not very obvious, so we shall be able to interpret. Yes, Liam.
Death be not proud. Death be not proud. Though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow. Die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go. Rest of their bones and souls delivery. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell. And poppy all charms can make us sleep as well. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. John Donne, England.
John Donne, England. Okay, thank you. So we are beginning already. As you read, let's internalize this poem. What is happening in this poem? Those basic questions should come to your head. Who is speaking in this poem? Those are usually guiding principles. Once you're able to cite that, then you are able to begin answering a few things here and there about the poem. It is very important for you to have an insight with those simple questions. Who is speaking in this poem? What is he speaking about? Who is he speaking to? Those are very basic questions, but they are a great deal in giving you an insight of what a poem is. So the last poem we looked at under the theme of death, what was that poem? What was the poem we looked at under the theme of death? Under the theme of death and ancestors, what was the poem? Yes, class? Yes, what was the poem we looked at under the theme of death and ancestors? Blessing? Pardon? Death the? Okay, your network, you said it was Death the Leveler. By who? Yes, class, we looked at Death the Leveler. By who? Remember, this is not just about knowing the poem. You should also know the author, or rather the poet. You don't stop at knowing the poet. You must also know the subject matter. Why? Because we are training you for the second part, which is the unseen poem. Yes, Noreen, your hand was up, you have disappeared. Terry, what you were here, who is the writer? Who is the poet of Death the Leveler? I want to try to create something here. I want to be able to show you what are we. The poet of Death the Leveler. Are you sure?
Death the Leveler. James Shirley.
Yes, the poet was James Shirley.
Yes.
Yes. So what am I trying to teach you? I'm also trying to teach you not to, like Liam said, to cram, no, but to memorize, to be able to put this in our mind, to know that in the unseen poem, you asked usually to mention the poem and the poet. That gives you either 2 marks depending on how they have been arranged, or 4. So sometimes you may lose marks because you do not know the poet. So make sure that you always know the poet every time you get to master a poem under each of these themes. We shall look at different themes, and each poem tries to discuss a different idea. So what was the general idea about death in that poem, Death the Leveler? What was the general idea? By show of hands. I want us to unite them. I want us to know what was the general idea we discussed. What was the poet discussing? What was the poet telling us about death in Death the Leveler? Yes, class. Benjamin, what was the poet telling us? Noreen?
I think the poet was telling us that however rich you are, whether you're a king or you are very rich, you cannot go to the grave with your riches. So death levels everyone.
Okay. There the poet James tells us, my friends, death is for all. It does not consider your riches or your poverty or your size or beauty. At the end of the day, we are all going to die. That's what James tells us. And therefore, it is a call to humanity to be humble. That is what James said. However, John Donne seems to have a different idea today. So that's why we are going to begin our discussion. When you read this poem, I've been giving you time to analyze the poem. When you read this poem, first of all, who is the speaker in this poem? Who do you think is the speaker in this poem? And who is he addressing? Who is he talking to? That is yet another thing we want to be able to pull out. Who is this person talking to? That is what I want us to discuss as a class. We begin from that point. Okay, let me check here. Okay, those were sharing. Okay, thank you, Blessing. Thank you, Lois. Those who are sharing in the chat, I'm seeing meaningful things. Okay. You cannot be planning to complete reading the books that should have been completed. Yes, let's go back. In this poem, when you look at this poem, who is the speaker and who is he addressing? Those are the two things I'm interested in. Who is the speaker and who is he addressing? Maybe let me also take my reading of this poem. Death, be not proud. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou does overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Much pleasure then from thee, much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and souls delivery. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men. For those with poison, war, and sickness dwell. One short sleep past, we wakest eternally. For death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. John Donne. So when you read this poem, who is the speaker? Who is he addressing? Let's begin from there. Christian. Yes, Auntie Christian.
I think the speaker is a member of a family which has lost his beloved ones. And so through this poem, he's giving courage to the fellow members not to feel so disheartened, because death is a normal and usual thing which happens to everyone.
Which happens to everyone.
Yeah.
I am okay with the second part, but not very satisfied with the first part where you say he's a family member. How do you know he's a family member?
Okay. To fix my answer, I think Over is someone who is giving courage to a family which has lost its beloved one.
Is a member who is doing what?
I think is a family friend, or even when they are at a funeral, and the priest, the religious person who is there, is the one giving the poem to the deceased family.
Oh, okay, thank you. I want to generally ask us here. Angelina, you're going to come in, but generally here, before you answer the question that I've asked, what is our notion of death? When someone talks about death, what comes to your mind? What is your idea of death? When they tell you someone has died, when they tell you one time we're all going to die, what comes to your head? Let me begin with Tracy. Yes, Tracy, what comes to your head?
When someone talks about death, like I know that when someone has died, we are never going to see that person ever again. And the person that died will never live again to see the face of the earth. Sadness, and maybe sorrow. Yes. And if the person was a relative, pity for the person. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me try another person. What are your emotions, or what is your notion of death? Terry? Terry, what is your notion of death?
To me, I associate death with loss. Not
With
just
ghost?
even loss, losing something.
Okay, losing something.
The sense that it's not only usually living things that die, even some non-living things that we don't usually see or know can even die. In case, like, let's say you cheat on your partner, the love there dies because you feel betrayed. So I don't, usually people associate it with losing something, living things, life, but even some non-living things can also be lost with death.
Okay, thank you. I think people are not getting my question. Kristen, Kristen, can you hear me? Kristen, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
What is the meaning of the word notion?
You have said emotions, right?
No. What is the meaning of the word notion? When I say what is your notion, what is your take? What is your take on death?
My take on death, death causes someone to loss of something, which causes sorrow, pain, and anger to someone.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Now, most of us have a general picture of death. Most of us fear death. Who can claim here that they don't fear death? Who can tell us here that he's so friendly to death and he has, yeah. So all of us, when they talk about death, we are so scared. We even fear to die because we don't know where we are going. So most of us fear death. Most of us fear death. That's why even in Africa, we say an old woman is uneasy when bones are mentioned in a conversation. It's because when people get old, they know we are going to die. And when we die, we go and we never come back. So most of us fear to leave Earth. That is the notion that people have about death. And I don't know if there's anyone here who varies, who says, maybe for me, I don't fear death. Liam, why you don't fear death?
No, teacher, I just wanted to interpret the poem.
I want to begin from the question, Who is the speaker? That is my first question.
The speaker is a human being, and he is addressing fellow human beings. He's trying to encourage them, to tell them that death is not the end, that if you die, there is eternal life. Death is just something very short, that you just sleep. Like, for example, here at the end, when he said that just one sleep away, then eternal life awaits. He's encouraging, he's telling them that they should not be scared of death. And then when they die, they know that they are going to wake up and go to eternal life or go to heaven, maybe. So he's basically trying to encourage them to not fear death, to just accept it as part of life.
You have given me a good interpretation of the poem, but I'm still not satisfied of the person. If you've told me that that person, or if you're telling me that that person is encouraging people, so what kind of person is he?
Okay, he's not encouraging them, he's just giving them hope.
Yes, he's giving them hope, which is courage. So what kind of person? I need at least an adjective that can describe this person. That's what I'm interested in.
I don't have an idea.
Okay, it's okay, but you have the idea, just the exact words are the ones that I'm missing. Let me take Casper. Yes, Casper.
Are you getting me?
Yes, we are.
For me, I think it is a sick person, eh?
How do you know he's sick?
Because like when you're sick, eh? Like he's trying to monologue himself, like until all this time I've struggled like to make sure that maybe I'm somewhere. By the end of it, I'm still going to die. Like
now,
that.
My children, my dear young boys and girls, in poetry, there should be evidence for whatever you say. When you tell me that the person is sick, you must show me that he's bedridden. You must give me evidence. But there is nowhere in the poem where he says, I am dying, I am sick. I don't see that. Do you see it?
No.
Good. So I need something proper. Tracy.
Master.
I usually don't like the name Master, but it's okay. I will take it for today.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. This person speaking is already dead.
He's already
because
dead.
Everything that you experienced. Yeah?
He's already dead.
He's already dead. Yes, because Master, at the end of the poem, it says that after you die, you will wake up again and there shall be no more. That means you will never die again. You will live. You can never know how death occurs or what happens after death unless you're dead.
Nice. Thank you.
Master, yes.
It is okay. I'm just saying maybe it's not what I want. Thank you. But you're close. We shall keep polishing our answers. Promise. Some names. Promise.
Teacher.
Yes, promise.
Teacher, me, I think the person speaking is a believer.
Thank you so much. That is a very fundamental. Now you are interpreting from the religious aspect. Please continue before I even interrupt your good answer.
Okay, teacher, I think the person speaking is a believer because when we are to see towards the end of the poem, when he says, one short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more, death thou shalt die. Because if you're to say in the religious aspect, like we all read and we know that in the Bible it says when you die, if you've been living a godly life, you will resurrect with Christ.
Thank you so much. In fact, that is a very good perceptive. Her angle is the religious one. Let me ask all of us here. For example, let me ask Noreen. Noreen, what does church teach about death? What are Christians meant to believe about death, or what have we been fed to believe about death?
Christians are meant to believe that when you die, there is another life after death.
Exactly. And that life, usually when someone dies, we write RIP. What is RIP in full? When you tell people to rest in eternal peace, we are looking at it that it won't end, that these people will be there forever and ever. That means there's life after death. So at least there I am okay when someone tells you that the speaker is a persona who believes in life after death. That is a very, very good answer. Do you understand? Are we together?
Yes.
So the speaker here is a believer, even if you told me that he's a Christian believer. But for me, I would be okay if you told me that is a believer who has a belief that there is life after death. So if you believe in life after death, your angle of viewing death will be different. You will not be like the kafirons or the non-believers who know that when you die, you go nowhere, you go to a dark place, or so that is the perspective here. The person believes, the speaker is a believer, or the other person can tell me that the person is a courageous and daring person. The speaker is a brave, courageous person who does not fear death, because for him he tells death straight away, death, be not proud. For many have called you mighty, but you are not. So for him, he looks at death as something not mighty. And then he begins interpreting why he thinks death is not mighty. So this person is brave and courageous, who really faces death and tells death off. So those are the two perspectives you can. So who is he addressing? Who is this person addressing? Christine, your hand is up. I hope you're giving me. Who is this person addressing?
Teacher.
Yes.
My answer was also pairing with the other one who said that is a believer. I told you that the person who is speaking is a religious person giving courage to a family which has lost its beloved one, the deceased family.
Yes. Now, your answer was in line. However, it was not the exact. Here we want someone who will hit the nail on the head, not meandering. Are we together? At least she has been exact. She has given us a direct answer. That's why I told you that you are in line. However, I want something which is easy for us when we are marking to interpret that the person who tells you that the persona is a believer. Now that is a direct answer than telling me the religious leader. There are so many religious leaders who are not believers of Christ.
A religious person.
Oh yes, there are so many people who are religious, but they don't believe.
Okay.
They just
now
carry
my
the
answer.
My
answer to the one who the poem is being addressed to is the deceased family, the person who has the people who have lost their beloved ones.
Really?
Yes, to give them courage.
I might not agree with you. Let's hear from the next person, Liam. Who is being addressed?
He's addressing non-believers, because if I read the poem, it says, death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful. So it is the non-believers who are calling death mighty and dreadful. Okay.
Sorry, yes, you're saying?
I think he is addressing believers. I mean non-believers. Because the poem says, death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful. So it is the non-believers calling death mighty and dreadful.
Okay. Okay, fine. There's something I'm going to be able to ask you. Let me thank you. There is that element, though to a small scale. I want the direct person being addressed here. Ella, Ella,
Yes, teacher.
who is being addressed?
I think he's addressing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. He's addressing death. I want you in the place of death, put there your name. Where they say, Ella, be not proud. Liam, be not proud. Annette, be not proud. Auma, Blessing, Christine, just put your name there. Be not proud. The person is directly addressing death. However, inside there, we get to know that the second audience is you and me, the ones who fear death. That is not the subsidiary audience, but however, the first person is addressing here directly is death. Remember Namakura? I don't know if I've guessed the second name right. Rema, your hand is up.
Yes,
Your hand is up.
I was also giving an answer.
Which was?
I was saying that the speaker is addressing death because death is supposed to be mighty and dreadful because it kills everyone, but he pities it and says that death should not be proud of itself.
Thank you so much. That is the correct answer. So that is our concern here. So we have known the speaker. We have also known who the audience is. Now we are going to the second part of our question, which is the subject matter. Who can be able now to give us the subject matter of this poem? Analyze line by line if possible. For example, if we read the first 4 lines, death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou does overthrow, die not for death, nor yet canst thou kill me. What is happening there? Yes? Who can tell? Yes, who can tell me what is happening there? I see Rema's hand is up. I hope it's not the old hand. Yes, Rema. Subject matter, Tracy.
Master, you say the first 4 lines.
Yes, Tracy.
You said I analyzed the first 4 lines.
Yes, the first 4 lines that I have read.
Yes, okay. The poet, known to be like, not because it's really known. Though some people fear it, and for those it thinks that it overthrows. Okay, to those that thinks it overthrows do not die. Or it treats them.
Your network, we can barely hear you. There is a lot of, could you look for another good network area, Tracy?
Yes, sir.
You get a good network area, then you put up your hand. I'll be waiting for you. Let me take Terry. Terry?
I think the first 4 lines, man is trying to ridicule death, as in make fun of it. Since some people believe that death is just a path to eternal life.
But we have not yet gone there.
We're
only looking at the first 4 lines here. That death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty. Now, when we are dealing with subject matter, you replace the words which are in the poem with your own words, your own interpretation. Don't copy the same word. You try to give us the other meanings of those words or other words that mean the same so that we avoid repetition. or copying and pasting? So that's what I want to hear from us, Lois.
The poem, like analyzing the first 4 lines. This poem, Death Be Not Proud, presents for us a man, a believer who is trying to comfort a deceased family, and he tells the family not to be, tells death not to be proud of itself, though some people consider it mighty, but it's not mighty.
What is
And
the
he
meaning
also,
of mighty? What is the meaning of mighty?
Big and undefeatable.
Those are the things I want you to replace, not copy and paste the words which are there. I want you to use your own words to replace those ones. For example, that be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful. Now, which words would you use to replace some of those words to give your own interpretation?
Be not proud. Should not consider itself too mighty that it can destroy anything or anyone. So some people consider it the poem Death Be Not Proud presents for us a believer who is trying to comfort a deceased family.
Where do you get
and
to see
he
the
tells
deceased
death
family?
not to consider itself a big thing which can destroy anything. Yes?
Okay, continue.
I can't hear you.
Okay, it may be your network a bit.
I'm getting you now. Teacher, I'm analyzing the first 4 lines.
But you're including things which we have not talked about. You're including things which we have not talked about. The area is consoling the bereaved family. Where is the bereaved family? In those first 4 lines, you don't see anything to do with the bereaved family. Okay, let's give someone.
Meaning the deceased family, not believe deceased.
Bereaved is the same as.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let us give someone another chance so that we hear their view. Primrose.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, what is your view?
I think John Donne highlights on a believer's notion on death, pointing out that death shouldn't delight in its achievements, though others are called it superior, since those it seems it has claimed, the people it seems it has claimed, die not poor death, and neither can it kill him.
Okay, thank you so much. Here he assures death. The believer here assures death and tells death that for those you think you have, many have called you, or so many people have feared you or have referred to you as big and scary, but you are not. He assures death that death is not as big and scary as most have called it. For those he thinks that it has overthrown, it has not actually done so. That's what he says in those very first lines, that those people have not died, and therefore death cannot also not claim his life. That's what he says in the first 4 lines. Let us continue. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure then from thee, much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go. Rest of their bones and souls, delivery. What does he mean there in those other 4 lines that we have read? Yes. Let us go on to the next. Annette. Yes, Annette. What is the interpretation of those next lines? Annette, your hand is up. Annette, your hand is up. Okay, it seems Annette isn't. Christine?
Sure, I had also a submission of the first 4 lines.
Okay, you give us the first 4, then you continue to the next 4.
Okay. The first 4, the believer is saying that death is not the ultimate thing, as in it's not the major thing. It's not that mighty. I mean, it's not that strong. It's not strong. It's not superior like most people take it as to be. And in the next 4, the believer is describing how death is like when you sleep and rest. That's how death, like you practice death when you sleep. It's like practicing death when you sleep. Everything that's like sleep, how sleep is. That's how death is. I think that's that believer is wanting to tell us in the poem. It's describing how death is.
Okay, there is a good idea there. Who can seal it further? Who can add more flesh? Who can add more flesh to what Christine has told us? Because it's true, he tells death around here that from rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. So he compares death to sleep and rest. And you know, we all love to sleep. So he says, I think from now, when we look at now, when we die, it is much more pleasure because we shall rest for a long time. We shall sleep for a longer time. So he tells death, what you're only doing is giving us such good rest and sleep. And from thee, much more shall flow. As we sleep, we shall get more. And soonest our best men with thee do go, that we shall claim the best of our men. Yes, you will take them. But what will you do? You will rest their bones and souls. So that means you will take their bones away from this world. It means you will give even those who are going through tough times, you give them a break from their problems. For they will now just sleep and rest and enjoy that long sleep. That's what he says in these next lines. Now, Rema says the poem doesn't really intend to deny the existence of death. Instead, it takes the Christian belief into eternal afterlife as proof that death is really nothing at all, though the afterlife has not yet been mentioned. I don't know what you mean by the last lines. The first lines, you're very correct. The last one, you've a bit killed it there. Okay, death is a freedom giver. Yes, blessing, that is very true. Does Kristen want to say more?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes. Now to analyze this whole poem, the first stanza, I want to analyze
it's only one
stanza.
It is only one stanza.
Oh, the upper part of the stanza, Yeah. Death, the believer is saying that death is nothing. It's not strong nor effective. It's not bad. Hello?
I don't know who that is. Liam, could you mute your microphone?
Hello?
My microphone is muted.
There is an irritating group of people. There's an irritating group of people online.
From Monday.
Hello?
Yes, sorry. Kyle, please behave.
Hello?
Yes, Kristen.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
So the first part of the stanza, death, the believer is saying that death is not strong, it's not that superior, how people take it as to be, it's not the worst thing ever. And so because it's a good thing on the other hand, it gives us rest. It relieves us from the stress that we have been having. It's more than a long-lasting sleep.
Okay, thank you so much. That is very true. So here the poet tells death clearly that it's not mighty. Instead, he compares it to sleep and rest, which we all know how sweet it is. And therefore, he says we derive a lot of joy from such a long rest. And therefore, even if it takes very many of the men those men are actually relieved. Their bones are rested and their souls, that is their stress and hard work. So they're relieved from the world's tortures and the bad things that may happen to them. So that's what he tells death in this first bit. Let us continue. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and those with poison, war, and sickness dwell, and poppy your charms can make us sleep as well. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death thou shalt die. What does he mean there? What does this person mean? What does the poet John Donne mean there in the last bit? When he says death is a slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, what does it mean? Who is a slave? Ella, who is a slave? Claire, who is a slave? Claire, who is a slave? Tracy, who is a slave? Yes, who can interpret who is a slave? I want to develop an idea there. Who is a slave? Christine. Christine, who is a slave?
A slave is a person who is forced to do something against their will without payment.
Thank you. Now, when they tell you that death is a slave to fate, what do they mean?
I think they mean, hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
I think when they say thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, I think they say that death is accustomed or subject to fate, chance, kings, and desperate people. It's a subject to all.
Not really. There's something I wanted with the definition you had given us. Now, when they tell you, okay, there is a honey and orange.
I think they mean that death is owned by fate and it is forced to work for it.
Yes, when we talk about, for example, when we choose to say that if I want to die right now, for example, which I don't, but I'm just saying in case I want to die, and I call death, death has to accept. That's what it means. It's now fate. For example, we are all fated to die. So death is a slave to fate. It must take the will of fate. It must take the will of chance, kings, and desperate men. Desperate men, those who want to commit suicide and all that. So that's what they're telling us, that death is a slave. It must do as commanded by people who want to die, as commanded by fate and other things. That's what it means here, that death has no option. It has to work, especially when it has been called to work. That's what it means there. And those with poison, war, all these are areas where death has to work by force or with or without its will. It has to work. At war, people must die. Death has to work. Those who take poison, they only take poison with one aim, not to grow fat, but to die. So death has to work again. So that's what we are saying here. Even those who are very sick and ill, they eventually succumb to death. That's why we are saying that death does not do its own thing, but it is a slave to these things that have been mentioned. It works without or with its will. But we are told that paupers and charms can make us sleep as well. So it is not only death that can make us sleep. So it is not mighty. If other things can do its job as well, then you're not unique. In short, here it's telling us death is not unique. For even charms and poppy can do the same. One short sleep past, we wake eternally. Are we together? So here we are told that eventually when we die, we shall wake up once and for all. And when that happens, there is no more dying. Therefore, death does not apply in the second life. That's what we are told, that and death shall be no more. I don't know if that makes meaning to us here. And eventually, that means also death has to die. When everyone is gone, then what will happen? So does that make sense to us? Do we now understand what this poem is all about? So if I could say something in general about this, we shall say that the poet, John Donne, presents an argument against the power of death. It shows the spiritual victory over death, that is life after. Death is presented as a transition point. It is like a train that takes you to a better life. That's what we're saying, that it takes you from the world's problems to eternal rest. So therefore, we shall call it as a passage to a better life. Death is warned against its pride. It is assured that the persona here who we took as the believer assures death that it's not as powerful as it thinks. For it takes men and women to a place of rest. I don't know if there is anything more we can add to that. And then the other part where he criticizes it, it tells death that it is a slave. So it is not working on its own accord, but according to the will of fate, chance, kings, and other desperate men. So instead, he criticizes it and says it is a slave. That is the subject matter of this poem. Unless you have a hand, you could raise and we share. Yes, Liam.
Teacher, in the first stanza, on the first slide, is this line which says which bats their pictures be. I'm trying to make sense out of it, but have failed. Like, I don't see where it's connected to the poem.
Now, there is what we call poetic license, and then secondly, there is what we sometimes you cannot read independent lines in poetry. However, here the comparison is making, he says, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. So he's trying to compare death to rest and sleep. All together. Yes, he says that there is a similarity in, because when a person is sleeping, if you're not very near them, you could think they are dead until you see their body movement. So he's trying to pick those two pictures and compare them. He says there's closeness between death and sleep. That's what he means. Yes, that's what it means. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have spent, I was trying to tell you that the first, that was James. James was presenting to us death as something mighty that levels ground for all of us. However, John Donne, on the other hand, believes death is not as mighty. And most of us are like James. We believe death is an alternative. That's why most people will say, at the end of the day, we shall all die. So we look at death as mighty, as the leveler, as like the final, destination. But for him, he says death is it is like a train that brings you from Kenya to Uganda, where things are better. I don't know if that is true, but yes, we are saying it is a transition point. So the two poets look at death differently, and that is what we have under the theme of death and ancestors. Those are the two main poems. Unless your teacher gave you another poem you could share with me, then we discuss it next time. Other than that, if you have a question, I think this lesson has come to an end. However, I am going to post these questions that you're seeing here. I'm going to post this work under assignments, and I expect you to do the last bit, that is What makes the poem interesting? What lessons do you derive? In our next lesson, we shall begin from that, but I will be basing on what you have contributed. And that's what I will look at. Are you called precious or precocious? That is precious, okay.
I was asking how many lines the subject matter should have, like how long it's supposed to be.
First of all, it's written in one paragraph. There is no definite amount of lines. You must only be able to analyze all the poem in your own words. So I'm not going to tell you it should be 2 lines or 3 lines or 5 lines. However, don't write the entire page. That will be too much. Christian, finally.
Teacher,
yes.
I'm having a concern on how to write the lessons. How do you write how are they supposed to be written? The proper way how to write lessons.
Okay, we have statement
and feelings.
Okay, we have statement lessons, for example. Then we also have what we call, others are put them as sayings or proverbs. Those are all different ways. So you might find someone saying, for example, that the common proverbs or common sayings, not all that glitters is gold. That is a lesson. Then others might say that to be human or to be alive is to be human, so you have a statement kind of lesson. And for this poem, for example, if someone was to state one lesson here, someone would probably tell us that death is not as scary as it seems, or death is not the end of life, but the beginning of an eternal life. Now that would be a complete lesson that I have learned here. John Donne has told me that I transitioned from one point to another. Is that okay?
Yes.
However, don't say I learned the lesson of, and don't say I feel. Instead, you say a feeling of, or you simply mention the feeling, agony, or I'm sad, I am upset, or a feeling of anger, but don't say I feel angry.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Mr. Dumba, I think, sorry, I've entered into the lesson a bit. Mr. Dumba?
Nothing much. Yes, sir.
I think that is it for today.
Yeah, thank you so much for your lesson. I learned a lot from your lesson. I last learned this in the 90s, so this brings back some good memories.
Thank you, sir, for attending.
Yeah, I encourage these students to read books. I did literature up to S2, but truth be told, up to now, I read a lot. I find in a book, I read, I find a novel, I read. Sometimes people thought I was a teacher of literature or language, but what? I just love reading. So this lesson, I was like your student.
Oh, thank you so much. You can attempt the work and hand in.
Thank you, though.
Okay, bye, sir.